Hello, everybody. Welcome to Option at Experimental Sound Studio, the Option Quarantine series. We are extremely happy to welcome New York-based violinist and composer Gabby Fluke-Mogul for a talk and a presentation of their work. Hello, Gabby. How are you?
Hi, Tim. I'm hanging in there. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. It's really nice to have you on the series. I would love to have had you in the studio in person, but once we're through this pandemic situation, maybe we can make that happen. But for now, this is what we're gonna do, and I'm very happy that you're on the series. Before we get started, I just want to remind the audience that you can donate at any time during the presentation. You can also donate to ESS at any time, even when there's not a presentation. Experimental Sound Studio has been doing tremendous work before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and they're going to continue to do amazing work after the pandemic. So donate to ESS. If you donate during the presentation tonight, all the money goes to the artist. So please donate if you can. Gabby, I wanted to start tonight just by asking you about the year 2020 and how you're coping and what you're doing to stay motivated to work and play, because based on the videos that I was listening, your playing is in absolute top form. So you must be practicing and you must be working. How are you staying motivated in these uncertain times?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I moved to New York on Feb 29th, March 1st, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, after spending 6 years or so in the Bay Area. So I moved back to the East Coast at a particularly unprecedented time.
Indeed.
I mean, I think I've been super thankful and super gracious for community and finding folks and connecting with folks here. Some I had known previously, and others who I met, who I were able to connect with and really find find some home with here, whether we were just connecting virtually or able to meet up safely. Community has really sustained me and revitalized me and kept me feeling alive.
Yeah, right on.
But it's also shifted throughout the different phases of the past year.
Sure.
Yeah, certainly a lot of alone time and practicing and listening, stretches where I felt like I wanted to spend time away from the instrument, stretches where I just wanted to be listening, whether it was listening to recording or listening outside, or doing more body work, somatic work.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really varied throughout the past year for me, but it's all in there. I mean, each thread and each part, I think it all comes out when it does.
Have you, other than the performance tonight, have you had an opportunity to do any other online concerts, or have there been any outdoor concerts when the weather was warmer that you were able to actually get out there and work as a musician?
For sure, yeah. I felt super gracious that that invitations were passed to me throughout the past year. I've played a bunch of live streams, and when the weather was nice and could play outside safely, I played a bunch of park gigs and rooftop gigs, and it's been mixed.
Yeah.
Really super thankful for those offerings and to be able to have those opportunities to play and to, gather safely, or to, play into the internet void
Right.
throughout this time. Yeah.
It's amazing to me how quickly, I mean, a lot of us musicians, being creative people, creative people across the board, were able to adapt, and still present and still work and just figure out ways to make it work. And it's been really inspiring to me to watch all these great artists just, okay, this is what we're dealt with. We're still going to adapt to it. We're still going to figure out a way to do it because we have to. We want to express ourselves, So for as dark as the period's been, it's also been, inspiring in some ways too. Why don't we get into a piece, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more, if that's okay with you. We'll get to the music, and then we'll come back. This is Gabby Fluke-Mogul. We're going to listen to a piece now, a solo violin piece of Gabby's, and then we'll come back and we'll chat some more. You're listening to Option at Experimental Sound Studio, and this is Gabby's piece for Ornette. Take it away, Ralph, when you're ready. Gabby Fluke-Mogul, option at Experimental Sound Studio. That was really, really strong, and there was a lot going on there. And as I mentioned earlier, when I said I was watching the videos you sent, and I mentioned that you were definitely must be practicing and working every day on your instrument because it's in top form, and that was proof right there. Really, really strong performance. Thank you for that.
Thank you for listening.
Maybe if you don't mind, we can talk a little bit first about your experiences on the West Coast before you moved to New York. You got an MFA at Mills, am I correct?
This is true.
What was your experience there, and just generally your work with? There's a ton of great improvisers, a ton of great musicians out there. What's your experience working out there? How long were you there? And maybe you could just talk a little bit about how you learned and grew being out in the Oakland, Berkeley area, San Francisco area.
For sure. Yeah, I moved to the West Coast in 2014. I received an assistantship to teach musicianship and attend the MFA program in improvisation.
Cool.
I was able to work with folks, mentors that I had been listening to since I was a kiddo. Pauline Oliveros, Fred Frith, Zena Parkins, Roscoe Mitchell, who
Yeah.
I just who were so deeply influential and impactful in, presently still, of course, in my growth as a person and an improviser.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I, from moving to the Bay, I was also really excited to be part of the Bay Area improvising community.
Sure.
And both play and help organize, help book, just make contact with folks who have been there for a long time, folks who came back through. It was a real privilege and pleasure to be part of a history and a continuum of improvisers in the Bay.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have a mutual friend we probably have multiple mutual friends, but a great mutual friend in Kyle Bruckman, composer and double reedist. He is, I've known him for many years and played with him a lot, and I have so many wonderful stories and learned a lot from him. And you were telling me before the broadcast that you were doing some work with him, and specifically a trio with him and the great bassist Lisa Mezzacappa. That's another tremendous West Coast musician, and it's so nice to just you think about an area of the country for a while and you start remembering all the great experiences you've had if you've been lucky enough to be there, and all the great musicians there, and it's a wonderful reminder that once we're out of this pandemic, there's going to be all this great stuff to get back to. All over the country, all over Europe, all over everywhere, and it's going to happen. It's just going to take some time.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, on your Bandcamp, your 3 releases are all solo. The videos tonight are solo. What is it about solo practice that is really attractive to you? And do you find it separate from the collaborative artistic practice? Like, are there things about solo playing, like the way that you might prepare for a solo concert, that are different than when you're collaborating?
I love both. I love being in collaboration with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find deep work in solo work, in figuring out what it means to be, and what it has meant, and what it means to be a solo, primarily acoustic violin creature.
Sure. Yeah.
Past, present, future. To me, being an improvising body means that it's truly past, present, and future. Everything that we carry, ancestrally to history, past to present moment to future, it's all there. And it all comes out in a tone, let alone in relationship to other tones. when we improvise with other people. I think it's all really there. But yeah, it's just been in the past, few years, I've played on a lot of other people's records, and played a lot of other people's work. But I haven't released a lot of my own. And yeah, right now, it's all solo work up there. But I just recorded a record with Joanna Matry.
Cool.
And Daniel Carter.
Wow.
And also a quartet with Eva Mendoza and Matteo Liberatori and Joanna Matry as well. So it's I deeply love collaborating with other people, and both in small ensembles and large ensembles. A lot of my work in the Bay and in Western Massachusetts, where I had lived prior to moving to the Bay Area, involved a lot of large ensemble work.
Oh, cool.
I really love a lot.
Yeah.
Whether it's tunes or conduction or just like big band improvising. That's a big part of like who I am and what I like to be doing.
Seems like you're just in love with music in general, whether it's solo, collaborative. What I really loved about not just the solo work that you sent with the videos, but the stuff I was checking out on Bandcamp, is how varied the pieces are. It's like you've really explored solo practice. You're really getting a lot of variation. And the other thing that I love is the pacing, and also the not being afraid to use silence. That's something that I've struggled with a lot in my own solo playing, is the feeling that you have to constantly fill up space. And you don't. You can let silence happen, and it can actually make the stuff a lot more interesting when you do silence happen. And it's really really a pleasure to listen to your work.
Thank you so much.
I have one more question actually connected to the solo stuff, and then we'll go to another performance. But one of your solo releases on Bandcamp was dedicated to the great Argentinian poet Alejandro Pizarnik. Do you want to talk maybe just a little bit about Alejandro's influence maybe on that piece, or just maybe if not even on that piece, maybe just more abstractly, how Alejandro's work influences your work?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, for whatever reason, or for many reasons, I grew up pretty disconnected from my ancestry, and learning about history kind of came on later in my life for me. And Alejandro's work Alejandro's work came to me in around 2010. And yeah, she's, a Polish Argentine Jew, who we share similar diaspora in those ways. And she writes a lot about themes and worlds that I both write and play from, and whether they're about childhood, about voices, about having multiple voices in oneself, about queerness, about kind of liminal zones, or just kind of the intangible, or ghosts, or just the visceral, the sensorial, the sensual nature of sound, which Paulina Laveros used to speak so much about, and speaks so much about. Just the kind of the grit and the beauty of that grit, and the sensuality of that grit, and the erotic of that, and like how how much light there is in darkness and in disconnect, and how we can, kind of follow the threads
Sure.
of music. And so her work really resonated and resonates with me, and was actually a large part of my thesis work when I was at Mills. I composed a long form, 38-day durational score based off of her poems,
Oh, wow.
with a large ensemble of improvisers. And yeah, just what does it mean to live and breathe with poems, and play them, and be in contact with them in different ways, and see what comes out of that sonically. So she's a really guiding presence and force in my life, both through improvising and composing.
What a beautifully rich tradition, literary tradition from Argentina in general. And now a poet who was, I have to be completely honest, who was new to me. Now another wonderful writer from Argentina I can add to my list of amazing writers from Latin America that I can check out. So thank you for that piece. Thank you for that description of the work, and how meaningful it is to you. That's really inspiring. Why don't we go to another performance,
For sure.
and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more. You're listening to Gabby Fluke-Mogul, live from New York on Option and Experimental Sound Studio. As always, please donate if you can. All the money goes to the musicians. We're going to listen to another piece, and then we'll come back. So Ralph, take it away, and we'll see you after the piece. Oh, we're back. Gabby Fluke-Mogul, Experimental Sound Studio Option Series. Gabby, we have a question from one of the listeners. And Jeff Guy was wondering if you can talk about your compositional approach and perhaps how you integrate it with free material.
Sure. I mean, I think it really depends on context and depends on, what's going on. But I certainly think a lot about duration when I'm composing. I think a lot about language. I often compose with text, but also mixed notation. So I'll compose in like traditional Western notation, also using graphic, but most often in the past few years with text, because I'm pretty curious about composing text scores for improvising bodies. But yeah, duration, language, context, all come into play in terms of free material. I don't necessarily, when I'm improvising, like that's not the time or place for me when I'm thinking about these things. When I'm improvising, hopefully I'm in the deep flow of it.
Sure.
Although one of my favorite, sentiments around when you have those internal monologues or those intruding thoughts or those, maybe those like compositional analytics that come in when improvising, comes from, talking to Fred Frith. And I remember going to him one day and just being like, Fred, like, for whatever reason right now, I just have all this shit coming up from me. Like, fuck, like I'm trying to play and like got these terrible voices coming in my head that I just sound like shit. Why would I do that? God, why would you play it like that? And he was like, okay, what do you do when that happens? And I was like, well, I try to silence them. Like I try to push them out, And he was like, well, okay, what if you played them? And I was like, shit, So,
Sure.
It's not always easy to, to play them, but yeah, but since that conversation, that's what I try to fucking do. It's like, is just play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you talk more about your compositional approach and how it integrates? I mean, to me, it's like, if it's not integrated and if I'm not embodied in like the ways that I think about how I compose and how I'm listening as a composer and as an improviser, then there's something disconnected for me happening. And then I have to sit with that and I have to think through it. Away from composing, away from improvising. I have to fucking sit down and just be like, okay, what's happening here for me? What's coming up for me? What clarity do I need to find here? How can I like dissect the threads that are coming up for me, so I can be, as clear as possible in how I communicate, whether I'm alone or with others.
Sure. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Maybe in a way connected to that question, you spent some time with Pauline Oliveros at the Deep Listening Institute. Maybe if you want to just talk a little bit about that experience. I know that's a pretty deep topic, and we could talk all night about Pauline's wonderful work and contributions. But maybe how, after you've been through the Deep Listening Institute, how that may have affected how you approach the instrument, in what ways, and maybe also how that affected your compositional process as well, getting to work with Pauline.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I came into Pauline's work probably when I was like 17 or 18. I came into I think I came into her writing before I came into her recordings. And I remember just being like, oh.
Yeah, totally.
And also like, huh? Like, like it kind of, it really confronted so much shit for me. Um, and it really like ripped me open in a lot of different ways. And I just kept trying to stare at it and dive deeper into what she was saying and her scores. And I just kind of started my own process of, what she names is deep listening, as, many people and cultures and, indigenous folks and like, people throughout history have also named in similar ways. These concepts of deep listening or deep listening meditations. And I mean, her text scores and the way she speaks about, the listening body or bodies listening to one another, deeply, shifted and resonated with me, and challenged and kind of supported the ways that I thought about composing, and what composing could mean and composing could be. I was able to work with her when I was at Mills via Skype, and also when she was in town.
Sure.
She was a mentor to me, and then I was able to do the deep listening program, which was also online with a cohort of like international folks and mentor teachers.
Okay.
After she had passed. I, integrate, her and words, her writing, her, the way she spoke about sound and sounding, and as she used to say, like, you got to remember to remember.
That's deep.
You gotta keep doing what you're doing.
Wow.
So, those are some things I try to remember to remember.
Beautiful. Maybe one more question. We'll get to some more music, but I wanted to ask you any other violinists that have been influential in your life, inspirational. For example, I got one of the most memorable concerts for me ever was getting to hear the great Billy Bang perform. And I'm not a violinist, but just his joy, his love of playing. He was dancing around the stage and just like, it was so wonderful and it was so unbelievably inspiring. And it was one of those moments where you're like, wow, like there's a real great reason we keep doing this. Like, and there's the proof right there, it's just so much positive energy. Was there anyone on the violin in particular that has been influential for you? Or viola?
Leroy Jenkins.
Wonderful.
Leroy Jenkins for life. Ornette Coleman. I mean, but Leroy, Leroy Jenkins for life. The Revolutionary Ensemble.
Yes.
Some of like hearing Ornette play violin, hearing Leroy Jenkins, Regina Carter, as a young person, changed my life profoundly.
Sure.
Especially I would say, the Revolutionary Ensemble and Leroy Jenkins playing, like, I'm just like deeply, it's a deep privilege and pleasure to hear his violin playing. And I've deep influence and impact.
Do you know this recording, Space Mines, New World, Survival of America?
For sure.
I mean, that record. I mean, I probably have listened to that record more than almost any record I own. And the compositions are just outstanding. Teitelbaum's synth, I mean, the electronics and Andrew Cyril, it's just the compositions are incredibly interesting. I think it's the best music ever recorded. I think that record is the best music ever recorded. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying that, but and you know, I've been listening to that record for like years, and then I finally like read the liner notes on the back, and you're supposed to listen to one side soft and one side loud, and I was doing it completely wrong, but it was still amazing. So I went back to it and I listened to the soft side soft and the loud side loud, and it was even more amazing than it was before. It's like the gift that keeps giving. I mean, it's I can't believe how fucking amazing that record is, and makes me proud to be in Chicago. You know, so let's hear it for the great Leroy Jenkins. Like my, and I'll tell you one more thing before we get to music.
Sure.
Did a workshop at Columbia College here in Chicago, and I said the word Leroy Jenkins, and apparently there's some famous video guy person now named Leroy Jenkins on some stupid World of Warcraft game. Like, no, I will not allow that to happen. I will not allow that to happen. Leroy Jenkins is a great violinist and composer. He has nothing to do with video games. No.
Well, you know, maybe he did.
Sorry for my rant, but
No.
anyway.
I know what you're talking about. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's like a whole situation. I mean,
Yes.
but what, you know, the fuck.
But what a force, and how lucky are we to have the recordings? Yeah.
Really.
Well, let's get to another piece. Gabby Fluke-Mogul on Option Experimental Sound Studio. We're going to listen to some more great solo violin work, and then we'll be back after that. So please stick around.
Thank you.
You are hearing Gabby Fluke-Mogul, an Experimental Sound Studio option series, every Monday night through the end of June, and then a break in July and August, and then starting up again in September and going through the end of November. So please stick around. We are hoping to get back into live studio audience concerts in Studio A at Experimental Sound Studio. Fingers crossed for the fall. We will see. We'll see what if the vaccines and coronavirus situation will allow us to do that. That's what we hope. Wonderful, again, Gabby, to have you. Wonderful performance. I wanted to ask you, you moved to New York from the West Coast. You said right at the end of February 2020. Is that when you moved to New York? Am I correct?
Yeah, I landed on March 1st, 2020.
So there was about what, roughly 2 weeks of like stuff being quote unquote normal before things went into lockdown. Am I right, or was it sooner than that?
It was a little bit sooner for me in that I had a dear friend get ill very early on
Okay.
on my arrival here, and a couple other folks who got COVID. So I started quarantining a bit early.
Okay. So did you even get to did you do any live performances in New York before the lockdown, or did you arrive and immediately just, oh man, went straight into lockdown basically?
I had things on the books, but I didn't play any of them. No.
Wow. So you got here, you got to New York, and then pretty much just set lockdown, and you're still in your lockdown spot in New York, and you didn't really get to really work, so to speak.
No, yeah, I had things on the books for a few months, and yeah, I didn't get to play them. But again, like I said earlier, I felt very lucky to have been offered live streams, and when the weather was warm, I played a bunch of outdoor gigs,
Cool.
in parks and rooftops. So I was able to play those throughout the past year.
My introduction to your work was a duo with the great bassist Brandon Lopez, and I really hope that you have more work lined up with Brandon once this pandemic is over, because it was a really tremendous duo. I mean, string duos, string trios, string quartets are just some of my absolute favorite kinds of music to listen to, and that duo was incredibly strong. So please do that duo if you can, once we're out of this mess. What other things do you have planned once we are able to get back to kind of quote unquote normal? Do you have any, let's say we're able to tour again. Do you have any tours on the books, or do you have any recording sessions that you're looking forward to getting back into once we're all more comfortable into being in the same room together?
Yeah. In terms of recording, like I mentioned before, I mean, I just recorded with Daniel Carter a duo record yesterday, the day before.
Oh, okay.
And last month I recorded with Joanna Matry, another duo record, a quartet with Eva Mendoza and Matteo Liberatori and Joe. Yeah, so those are records that I'm currently working on, and really excited to help birth them into the world this year. Also, I had the opportunity to plan a Daniel Carter large ensemble recording a few months ago, which was super exciting.
What a tremendous musician in person. Wow.
Really?
I mean, just listening to him talk is just as great as listening to him play music. Oh, what a intellect, like unbelievable.
Really, Daniel Carter is an absolutely wonderful soul.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we got together when the weather was warm. We found this really bizarro, quiet park in the Lower East Side, and that had a bunch of like pumpkins So we called it our pumpkin patch, and so we would go and just play for as many hours as we could with these pumpkins in the pumpkin patch until we were like physically unable to play anymore because it got too cold. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, recording has been pretty. I've felt very fortunate to be recording throughout this time, and in terms of travel, um, in the I've had a fall, or, so many things that had been rescheduled, potentially scheduled, potentially not, but the trio with Fred Frith and Nava Dunkelman hopefully will potentially happen on the West Coast in the fall. We were supposed to headline the High Desert Soundings Festival in Joshua Tree.
Wow, cool.
Together in trio, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm certainly looking forward to whatever comes next, and yeah.
Right on. Well, maybe just one more question, and then we'll close out with your final performance. But I wanted to ask you, outside of music, and I know we got into literature a little bit already, but maybe other influences, maybe from the visual arts or anything really that kind of inspires you to work as a musician. Anything in particular that you connect with outside of the field of sound?
I mean, as we spoke very briefly earlier, I've always worked with young people.
Cool.
Young people of all ages, but primarily in the past 10 years with babies and toddlers.
Can you come to Chicago? I have 2 kids that you are more than welcome to work with. Okay.
Anytime. But yeah, within schools, outside of schools, kind of in the past 5 years, to be able to be playing as much as I could, I've transitioned out of working in schools, teaching in schools, to doing more childcare in homes for families. And yeah, I mean, I learned so much from young people. I learned so much from babies and toddlers. I think there is so much power and so much knowledge and so much to learn from listening to children and to supporting young people and families, especially now, but always. So, folks who are just coming into their bodies and just coming into the world as, listening, sounding, communicating, people with like deep capacities and agencies and capabilities. And yeah, I feel like, children are a really big part of my inspiration and my listening and my improvising as a person.
I can hypothesize that your work with Paulina Oliveros can easily translate into your work, like what you've learned with deep listening can easily translate into work with kids. Like I've certainly had to learn to be a better listener with my kids for sure.
Totally.
Because you're on their terms, and you sit and you be patient and you listen to them and you learn from them.
Totally.
And I think I've definitely become a better listener after having kids for sure. Absolutely. Well, Gabby, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on our series. Thank you. I really look forward to the time when live concerts are happening and we can get you in the studio, hopefully collaborate, tour, all the above, all the good stuff. Let's hope we get to that place sooner than later. But why don't we close out the night with the last performance? And I just want to thank Experimental Sound Studio for continuing to host this wonderful series, along with everything they've been hosting online just about every night of the week. You can hear music hosted from ESS, which has been a really fantastic bit of brightness in an otherwise fairly complicated time. So thanks to ESS, thanks to my fellow curators, Ken Vandermark and Andrew Klinkman, for option. And thanks, Gabby. Good luck with everything. And I hope to see you soon in person. And one more time, don't forget to donate. All the money goes straight to the musicians. Thanks, everybody. This is the final piece of Gabby Fluke-Mogul, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, ESS. Thank you, Ralph, for having me. A true privilege and pleasure, and it's an honor to be part of the Options series. Again, it's also, it's been a bright light to listen in throughout quarantine, and I hope to see y'all in the real when we can.
Be there. We'll be there soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening.